valued at millions and downloaded by millions of users. I'm talking about Calorie, an app that instantly tells you a meal's calories with a photo. Today, we're going to build a similar prototype, a demo where we'll learn two very important things. First, we will learn how to communicate effectively with the vision models of our AIs. And second, we will learn some more effective prompt design techniques, prompt engineering, okay? Hi, I'm Expe Avomo, an AI developer and consultant. You'll also get a demo of a flexible project you can apply to any of your AI projects. Here, we are talking about food, but this same logic applies to any other sector you can imagine. So without further ado, see you in the code. Until then. Welcome to the code. Before we start, this is the notebook we'll be using today. It's in my GitHub repo, and I'll link it below. You have this same notebook, okay? And you also have the project in backend and front-end format, okay? Besides the notebook, I'm also providing this as an application. This way, you can use it on your phone or the web and deploy it to production wherever you want, all right? Here's a simple demo. We'll see how it works later. Now, let's get to the project. An AI calorie scanner simple. Right? So, let's start from the beginning. But first, a quick note. The three main critical parts of this project are the ones I will focus on and discuss in detail. I'll explain all the others a bit superficially, because the goal here is not to learn to program, but to understand how we can apply these AI projects, to our own personal tasks or our own personal ventures, okay? Okay. I'll still explain everything, even if it's brief, and I'll make it very clear, so that you leave here with a general idea of everything and with a much clearer version of the important parts. This first code cell, technically the second since the first is explanatory, has, as expected, the necessary imports and all the initial configurations. We are working with the OpenAI API, so we need to import OpenAI and OS. And to work with the hidden files where we store our critical data like the OpenAI API. So if you look here, you'll see that no end file appears. But if I open the project from my local folder, right on my laptop, the end file disappears. Why? Because the end is a hidden file. All platforms understand that if an end file is present, they just shouldn't upload it, because it's understood that all the information in that file is hidden and is not public, okay? Okay, we'll put our private OpenAI API key here, because we don't want to share it. In the end, we've named the OpenAI API key this way, okay? And how do you create one? Well, simply, as many of you may already know, by coming here to OpenAI, create new secret key. Here you put the name. You click on create secret key, and a long code will be created for you that you'll have to copy in this case and put in the end as I've shown you, okay? All right, back to the notebook. Now that all this is done, let's create an OpenAI client here. A client for any process is basically your way of interacting. For example, if you're on the web visiting a web page, the client is the browser. For example, I'm using. What's that browser with the lion called? I forget the name. But in this case, I'm using Google Chrome. So Google Chrome is the client. Why? Because it means that if I enter, for example, in this case I'm on OpenAI, well, it doesn't show me all the code, the jumble of code of JavaScript or Python that's behind OpenAI, put in, I don't know, in matrix format. That's the client. Okay, so that's what we're doing here, creating a user-friendly OpenAI client. It's a variable that lets us easily interact with the OpenAI API. Okay, we ran that cell a bit earlier, as it can be slow. This function isn't very important. It simply says that any variable, anything we put here, any value we put here inside these parentheses, it should put it in Markdown format. Markdown format is this right here, okay? Simply, okay. That's it. Okay, moving on, I'll run this. Now, this is important. The PL library is what allows us to read and load images. Okay, So here I run the library. Here I run this, which will allow us to see the image in question. Here the image I've loaded for now is of snails, a typical dish from my country. They're like a kind of barbecued snails. I'm from Equatorial Guinea, by the way. And here we import this library. It allows us to interact with memory as if it were any other file, okay? Here we import B64. This is important, so I'll spend more time here. B64 is the format understood by vision models, the models that work with images, not directly. We are working with the API, not the Chat GPT. We are using the OpenAI API. That's something else. For the API to understand the past image, it must be in B64 format. Base 64, I mean. That's why we created this function. You can see the code is well explained. The key takeaway is it processes any image, which is why it's called an encode image to B64. It converts any image you pass it, in any format, to B64 for the API to understand. In fact, if you look at this in terms of tokens, of token consumption, it's inefficient because what B64 does is it increases the size of the image. Not physically, of course. But if image data takes up a little space, converting it to B64 format makes that same data take up this much larger space, right? So the AI must use many more tokens to interpret the information. But with an API, it's the only way for it, in this case OpenAI's, to understand the information that image contains, right? There is no other way. There may be others, but this is among the most common. So, while the API gains in understanding the information, we lose out on our token consumption, you know? Now, another important function is the query OpenAI vision. This is the function where the query is already encapsulated, where all the information we need to query the vision model for a response is stored. Okay, so you can see it has the client, the OpenAI client we made earlier, and the image. Actually, I haven't run this yet, so let me run it now, okay? And here, well, here you have an explanation of what each of those arguments does, okay? Okay, so you have everything here. Now, this is important. The message field, as its name suggests, is the actual message we are going to send to the AI so that it can provide a response. It's all well structured here to pass along the information it needs, okay? So here's the B64, the image converted to a format the AI can understand. That's why it must go in message, because it's all ready. The message, which is the part of the model where we are going to put the query information we want to make, okay? Okay, here's everything, with a little more on the configuration. We are making the API call here. This is the structure. We pass the model, the messages we configured right here, see? And here we have the maximum tokens, okay? Max tokens, which is how many? What is the maximum number of tokens you can spend to answer me, okay? This way we have control over how many tokens the AI is spending, okay? You can go here to OpenAI tokens, for example, and you enter here into the OpenAI tokenizer platform, and here on this OpenAI platform, on this page, you can see if you put, for example, hello, how are you? Here it tells me how many tokens it has. It says 17 characters, and this phrase has 5 tokens. So, for this project, we are setting the limit at about 100 tokens. This means we are setting a 100-word limit. So your response cannot exceed that, okay? So, it does this. Query OpenAI Vision is simply the function that encapsulates, that structures the query with all the necessary information that we are going to pass to the computational vision model. In this case, which will be GPT-4o, which you see here, so that it can give us the most accurate response possible. Okay, good, but we are missing one more component, which is the prompt. If you look here, in this function, there's an argument that is the prompt, okay? Here we'll define the prompt. I'm going to spend more time on this, as it's one of the keys to this project. This is a good way to design a prompt. It's a prompt engineering technique. Okay, what are we passing to it? What I'm passing are several elements. I'm passing a context. When I create a prompt, I'm passing a context, some instructions, the input, and I'm also passing an output. And the icing on the cake is that I'm showing it an example of how I want the information output to be. Okay, I'm going to pause a bit more and explain this. Let's see. I think I forgot to run this part here. I had run the part above, just in case. Okay, and now I'll continue with this. All right, what is the context? The context is like giving a background to the model. Imagine you want your AI model to be one that designs marketing campaigns for the next Black Friday. So, what context do you give it? You say, you're a marketing expert with over 20 years experience specializing in Black Friday campaigns. You've given it context, a background, a story. Now, the instruction. It's what you want it to do right now, the precise task you want done. And here you must be much more concise. Here I'm telling it, for example, analyze the food item in the image and provide estimated nutritional information based on the. I'm going to go to the next line. On your knowledge, I'm telling it, analyze the food that appears in the image and provide nutritional information based on your knowledge. I'm giving it a concrete task. In the marketing expert example, for example, create a winning campaign for Black Friday 2025. Okay? Here in the input, I tell it what kind of data I'm going to enter. So I define the type of information I'll input. What I'm telling it with an image of a food item is, I'm going to give you a food image. Okay. The output, here in the output, I specify some of the information it will generate, how the output should be structured, how it should be displayed to me, and if it's going to be extensive information, what parts, what aspects of that information it must absolutely give me. For example, this project provides full nutritional information. I'm telling it, hey, from all the nutritional information you can get from this image that I'm going to give you, first get me the food name, the name of the food item, a description, okay? The calories, the grams, the protein grams, and the confidence level. We added this since models can make mistakes. Therefore, we are telling it, hey, for the information you give me, you also have to tell me how confident you are. That is, how reliable you think the result you've given me is, whether it's low, medium, or high, okay? We'll see it with the example now. Still, the input, the output, and of course, the output, as I said. What we are saying here is that I'm giving it an example of what the output should look like, okay? I mean, despite having given it all those specific instructions above, I'm also giving it an example, okay? This important note is essential for this case. Plus, it helps us save on tokens. You see? It says here, important. Respond only with a single JSON object. You ask ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, can you tell me who discovered America? All right, I'll tell you who discovered America. All that worthless fluff you get first. So basically what I'm telling it here is to remove that. I want you to give me a concise answer, not to beat around the bush, okay? Give me a concise answer in this JSON format. And here I'm passing it an example, okay? Okay, now, once this is done, I think I've already executed this prompt. Let's see it in action. Let's see what information it gives me. I'm going to call the query OpenAI vision function here. Save it in this OpenAI nutrition result variable, and let's print it. So with the image from before, remember? Here's the result it gave me. Grilled snake with vegetables. That is, grilled snake is like roasted snails, right? With vegetables. I think it's the image we had above, if I'm not mistaken. The one with the dish from my country, right? Here it's giving me the nutritional values. Sorry, let's scroll down a bit. Here it is. It got the name, see? Just as we indicated. Serving description, 100 grams, 90 calories, 1.2 fat grams, 14 protein grams, and confidence level. Hey, how confident are you this info's correct? It says medium. Okay, let's use another image. Allow me. I'm going to put here, for example, pizza slice. It's in print format. I'm going to remove this JPG from here. I'm going to run it, okay? The pizza will appear here. I'm going to run this part as well. And this part as well. It's no longer needed. But I am going to execute this last part, and let's see. We are waiting for it to execute. Let's see what it outputs here. Pepperoni pizza slice. 1 slice. Calories 285, fat 12, protein 13 grams, and it tells me the confidence level is high. I'm very sure that what I've shown you, the analysis I've done, is of a slice of pepperoni pizza. Okay, good. And this would be this project, okay, in the notebook, all right? I hope you've understood the essential parts, which are this part here, the encode image to B64, this function here, which is the query to OpenAI vision, how we structure the query to pass it to the OpenAI model. And here, how the prompt is structured is very important. Remember, as I mentioned before, you can take this prompt and apply it to any other project later on. Imagine you don't want this for food, but for agriculture. Just pass it a picture of your plants, and it can tell you what's wrong, like if they're poorly cared for or sick. It can do so much, even things like detecting skin diseases and countless other applications you can think of. All right, with that done, let's quickly see what the application format looks like. So, as I said, I'm here in Visual Studio Code. I've opened up the same folder, the exact same one I showed you before, which is what I have open here. Here I have the backend and front end. Let's go into the front end part now. Okay, the backend is obviously built with Python, the front end as well, but there we use a new Python library called Gradio. Gradio is a very powerful Python library that allows us to, let's say, create the visual part, the front end, of any project much more quickly and easily. It's very similar to Streamlit. If you're familiar, Streamlit does the same as Gradio, but Gradio's the newer one, okay? Okay, well, I've already run the application. That's Python app. Py, okay? This came up. I'm going to copy this path they've given me. I'll go to my browser, paste it here, and the app will appear. It's loading fine. This is the web app. Now I'll upload an image. Images I'm going to upload, for example, this lamb one. I upload this and click Analyze, for example. This isn't lamb. I think it's a fish. I'm not really sure what it is, whether it's meat or fish. I click Analyze. It's running and should give an answer. So look, this is the response it would give in the code, okay? In JSON format, and this is a format that's a bit more user-friendly. It's the same thing. Grilled salmon salad, smoked salmon. It's all the same information. When I run it, it says medium confidence level. So, pizza slice and analyze. Same again. Pepperoni pizza slice, confidence high. Now, a quick note. If you're thinking, you're using the OpenAI API, that costs money, and I don't want to pay. A very simple way to do it, without it costing you anything, is by going to OpenRouter. I'm not going to go into much detail, but I'll show you how you can do it, okay? In OpenRouter, just type free in the search bar to see all the free models. I normally just work with the DeepSeek models, which I really like. I'll go into DeepSeek. Okay, now, remember the OpenAI client we set up at the start, right? Click on API here. If you don't have the the OpenRouter API, create. The process is very similar to making one with OpenAI. Remember, once you create the API, you save it in the end, okay? In an end file. Notice, when you click on API, several code options appear. This is the one you need, OpenAI Python. With this version, just copy and paste it into your code, as it directly creates the OpenAI client. Basically, you can use the DeepSeek API via OpenRouter by creating an OpenAI client, right? So that it works, because the OpenAI endpoint is compatible with the OpenRouter one. Therefore, they make it seem like, hey, it's as if you were working with OpenAI, but you're actually working with DeepSeek, okay? And that's why you have this right here, client OpenAI. It's just like what we did at the start. If I scroll up, you'll see it's very similar, okay? It's exactly the same. The only thing that changes is that what you're doing here is not actually working with the OpenAI API, but with the DeepSeek one. Ditto. And instead of putting the API directly in the code, you put this variable that you've created previously, okay? And it would be Open Router API key instead of OpenAI API key, okay? Just a small clarification for those of you who want to do it without it costing you a lot of money. Okay, good. Okay, here's another part of the app I want to show you. We've seen you can upload images, but you can also take a live photo. If I click here, the camera opens up, and imagine you're opening this on a mobile phone. And you can directly take a picture of the food you're eating right now, and it will do the exact same analysis. All right, that's everything for today's project. I went through some points quickly, but don't worry, it's all well documented on GitHub. If you have any questions, just leave a comment, find me on LinkedIn, or use any of my contact info to reach out. If you have a question, post it in the comments. Someone else might have the same one, and posting it publicly can be a huge help to them, okay? That's all for now. Remember, I'm X, an AI developer and consultant. Today I have another project for you. Next week, I hope to share a great project that measures the quality of our AI models. Time permitting, I'll record it this week for a release next week. Questions? Comment? Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video if you found it useful. A big hug and see you next time. Bye.